Last year, we got a report that PlayStation had started moving its investment budget from its single player games emphasis to largely a live service emphasis. If you go want to look up the numbers, I'll give them to you. I don't want to show you anything, but I already have two data sets on my screen. So just take these numbers and go research them and verify what I've said. They used to have in previous years, in 2019, 88% of their investment was dedicated towards traditional games and 12% towards live service. Now their plan is to move their single player budget to about 40% and live service to 60%. That can be verified on sources like The Verge and some others, and even investor meetings that they've already posed this stuff to. One of my audience members has a problem with me citing this data as the live service takeover, because live service games are basically engulfing single player games. So in an attempt to basically show that in the year 2023, even though the reports are saying that new game spending was overwhelmingly relegated to about 43 games, that it's a good mix of single player and, live service games that brought in the most revenue. So I decided to go ahead and show them Steam's data set that talks about the best games in 2023. If you go on Steam, they'll show you the games that received the highest grossing revenue for that year. This audience member also went ahead and cited a new research piece that talks about the best performing 2023 releases. In their minds, they have basically concluded that this is supposed to show that because 2023 had a good number of single player launches that did very well, that they are part of the mix and are pivotal in terms of the entire revenue pool. Now, I never said that only the live service games were earning all the money, because obviously from the Steam data set that I've cited, you see a lot of single player games here. However, the ratio is actually more leaning towards the live service games, because I counted them. There are about 90 something games that were the highest grossing games on Steam in 2023. And only about 30 something of them, of the 90 something, were single player games. So by default, the ratio is pretty much almost 3-1. What does that tell you? That tells you that Matt Piscatella, and him citing every week that, hey, these live service games are what players are playing, that there seems to be a correlation that at least gamers are putting their money where their time is. Also, it tells us that this may be one of the reasons that PlayStation is now starting to make a pivot, because they want to go in there and get that money. So the audience member of mine said, well, if you look at the 2023 data, it shows that the single player games had a great year. No one is disputing that. In fact, this particular data set helps us to, separate everything properly. They're not at odds with each other. It's just that one of them has taken a different focus in showing us how well the single player games performed. But in context of how every game performed and who performed the most on Steam, you'll notice that these single player games that came out and launched in 2023 were struggling with games that launched before them in the live service category. For instance, if we look at, say, even the top 4 in terms of those games, right? Let's go ahead and just say the top 5, because in the top 4, one of them's a live service game. Shocking. The top 5, all of them being in the top category in the year 2023, showed that they were still outclassed by the live service games. Baldur's Gate 3, yes. Hogwarts Legacy, yes. Sons of the Forest, yes. And Cyberpunk 2077 and Starfield. But then look who else is on here. Destiny 2 of 2019, Counter-Strike 2 of 2012, PUBG of 2017, Lost Ark of 2022, Apex Legends of 2020, and Call of Duty every single year, slapping everybody. You're not refuting my point. You're just basically taking a data set that talks about the top 2020 releases by units. These games didn't come out in 2023. These games that are actually beating on these single player games, what's actually scary is that they're old. If that doesn't even scare you even more, I don't even know what else will. Now, we move to the silver category so that we can find some of the other games that are on this category. You'll notice that the finals, which also was launched in 2023, made the top 10 list. So when you look at even a game like, say, Lethal Company, which is put on number 3 in this list for 2023, it shows up in the silver category fighting with games like Final Fantasy XIV. of 2014. A game that was 9 years older than it. It made similar amounts of money than it. New World, Arcanum. Rust of 2018. Sea of Thieves of 2020. Lethal Company finally broke into that category and it's like, woo! But those guys are sitting there steady earning money. Earning similar amounts of money because they're all in the same category. Black Desert of 2017. Yo, in fact, what you've done is you've actually made this data set, in my opinion, scarier. That these single player games not only have to break into the market and appeal to a large number of people, they have to break in and appeal to even legacy live service games. Oh, what a pain in the butt. What a mountain they have to overcome. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about Elder Scrolls Online of 2017. Shall we keep going? Let's look at Armored Core 6. I think that came in the bronze category. Well, that was probably in the silver category, I think. Yeah. It had to fight with FC 2024, a live service game that broke out that year. Rainbow Six Siege of 2015. Dead by Daylight of 2016. Oh my gosh. And War Thunder, the free-to-play, nightmare of 2013. Resident Evil 4 broke in, but hey, it made just as much money as a live service game that has been established since 2013. Naraka Blade Point of 2021 was also in that category. This should tell you exactly why PlayStation is running to the heels to get these live service games out of the door, because it takes a lot. Like, there's a lot of effort to push these single player games out there. You got to make a good game. You got to market it right. You got to keep it free from controversy, and you got to make sure that the game lands very well and it's able to capture its audience with, at launch to gain that momentum. All of those hurdles, PlayStation has been finding it hard. Marvel Spider-Man 2 did 12 million copies on the PlayStation itself. But man, they are rushing it to the PC platform. Concord didn't do well. They pulled the plug. Now, if you want to argue that, well, because 2023 looked really good for a lot of these new single-player games, perhaps these live service games are not even really that much of a threat, 2023 has already defeated that argument before you even make it. And guess what? 2024, bloodbath. Oh my goodness. You see, let me show you the top categories again, because I showed you this data set and it didn't necessarily, I don't know if you didn't look at it or if you didn't care and you went ahead and found this data set and you quickly brought it here. But let's look at 2024. Let's see what's happening here. In 2023, it was a good year for single player games. Don't get me wrong. There were more in the high-end category, but there were many launches that year for single-player games. It was a good year. A lot of these games came out of the oven, and they just all jumped right at us. It was a good year. But 2024, when many of them were still in the oven, we only got Baldur's Gate 3, Wukong, and Elden Ring based on its DLC. And there's another single-player game here. Actually, none. Other than these big three, everybody else was live service. Power World, Helldivers 2, PlayStation, making that money. If PlayStation had released a single-player game this last year, do you know who won in the PlayStation category for the PC launches? They launched 3 games day one on PlayStation. 3. Lego Horizon Adventures, Helldivers 2, and Until Dawn Remake. Do you know who won? It was their live service game. This data set tells PlayStation, crap, get more live service games out there. That's where you can make money. You're not arguing against me. You're actually arguing for me now. I've recruited your argument. Thank you for this data set that categorizes it very clearly. The trend is even insane. Now, unless we get another year with their, single player games of this capacity, mostly RPGs. If you look very carefully, many of these games are RPGs. These are not just single player games. I know people want to say, single player games. Many PlayStation players get filtered by these games too. Don't get me wrong. Like, let's be real. Most PlayStation, like a lot of these folk could not even play Gotham Knights without yelling at the game. Oh, I got to farm gear. Okay. Yeah. Most of these games are much more popular on PC anyways. I just got to be, I'm just saying from the, the numbers that I can cite. Baldur's Gate 3, definitely a mainly PC game. Just let's be honest. Hogwarts Legacy, more sales on PC, likely. We could say, we don't have the data set. I just said likely. Let's just throw that one away. Let's throw it away. Cyberpunk 2077, ain't no way you're going to tell me that this game sold more on console than PC. Get the heck out of here. Starfield, how many people bought that early access that showed up on the Steam concurrent player list during the early access? I mean, it's not even available on PlayStation, but we know PC carried this game. There's just a different player style in that regard. You'll even see some of these live service games show up on Piscatella's list from time to time. You'll see some show up on PlayStation. But again, the data is like, it's singing to you. Just let the music play. We look at the gold category in 2024. Path of Exile 2 barely showed up. December 6th already made gold. I mean, how is a single player game supposed to thrive here? Enshrouded early this year, it's in gold. First Descendant is in gold. Cyberpunk 2077, another RPG. Throne and Liberty, Dead by Daylight, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Warframe 1999, Naraka Blade Point. Basically, almost all single-player games except Cyberpunk 2077 in the gold category compared to 2023. So there literally has to be an infusion of about 6 to 8 single-player games, and hopefully most of them are RPGs, to be able to break into the Steam top games if they're accepted by the gamers who play them. A very interesting feat. I'm looking through this particular, data set for 2024. Dragon Age the Veilguard, it launched on PC. No DRM, all that stuff. It shows up all the way down in the bronze category. Topped by live service games all over the place. Lost Ark, that dropped its position from number 1 category in 2023, it's in number 3 category. So even if they're dropping and still stomping on the heads of these single player games. I have somebody that's, basically, I don't know what their problem is. They have a problem with all the data that I present. Everything is a problem. You present the data, it's a problem. There's one little problem here about the data set. There's a little thing that's just not, working. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just go bring some data so we can actually juxtapose it and see what's going on? If you believe that on console that they're not doing the same thing, then that's fine. I'm not even arguing about the console. I mean, we already have the number. We already have what games they're playing the most. That's one thing. We know that. Now, are they spending the most on there? Okay, we could say maybe we don't know that. But if they're playing these games the most, then what are they doing with the other games? Because when these other games finally launch and we see their sales were like 3 million Final Fantasy 16, 1 point something million Stellar Blade, 2 million Wukong, 65 million console, you push only 1.5 million for Astrobot. What are y'all doing on PlayStation? All these single player games y'all are, singing out loud about. What time do y'all have to play them? Every week when Mr. Piscatella comes out and says, oh yeah, by the way, y'all weren't playing these games. Y'all were playing freaking Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft. Because, you can't see Fortnite data here on the Steam thing. And I'm sure it's probably bodied, it unbodied a lot of games. But this is what y'all are playing. Mortal Kombat 1, I'm playing Mortal Kombat 1 with y'all too on PlayStation. I'm playing, crossplay. Hey, we're all in it right now. This doesn't mean I don't like single player games. This does not mean that I'm not a fan of single player games. I like single player games. I just prefer to embrace reality and not delude myself when the data is telling me otherwise. Because I've noticed that it might be a trend in today's day, right? For some reason, some people want to sing a different song to themselves when the evidence is saying otherwise. It's okay. I don't know what else to say, guys. I've made this video like 4 different times. If this does not speak to you why PlayStation has moved its live service, concentration, then nothing else will. Keep on deluding yourself. Keep on believing what you want to believe. I cannot be liable. I didn't publish the data. I didn't go into Steam's bank account to figure out who sold the most in terms of games, revenue, and microtransaction. They just published it. I'm just the guy that's telling you. If you think that I'm, in a sense, making something up, I don't know what it is, take it up with Steam. Thanks for watching. Peace out.